comes up here today. And, I think, like I was just saying, I think that what is definitely in front of me and, the thing that's in my awareness more often than not is the reality of health and the importance of individual responsibility for their health and the gaslighting of individuals to forget where health comes from and to rely upon external forces and people and technologies for their health. And I know that you have recently been involved in this health freedom for humanity thing. So maybe I'd like to just talk a little bit about health freedom and why it's so important to you.
Um, in my way to describe it, there would be nothing less spiritual, or you might say nothing less sacred, than taking a drug uh, or an injection, a vaccine, in air quotes, but we can get into that. A vaccine, wearing a mask, locking yourself in your house. There would be nothing less spiritual or sacred than doing that because someone told you to do that. So there's nothing less sacred or spiritual than blindly falling in line. And we have lost our sense of who we are. There are people who we know, you and I know, who profess to teach a spiritual understanding, who are rushing to get poison injected into their body. There is anyone who is doing that has not looked into what they're doing. There's no way you can convince me otherwise, because if you had looked into what you were doing, if you had looked into the ingredients, if you had looked into the technology, if you had looked into the history of the companies that are pushing this vile crap, then unless you want to hurt yourself, kill yourself, then you wouldn't do it. And quite frankly, I have friends who are doing it. And it's important to me, up to your question, it's important to me that people understand what's going on, what they're doing. And that's not to say that at the end of the day that they don't have a right to do what they want to do. I'm not saying that. They do.
Mm.
But I am encouraging people to, before you jump to just follow someone because he or she has a fancy title or something, or claims to be a scientist, you have the freedom to explore for yourself. And if you do that and ultimately you decide, then fine. But I will contend with what's happening now. There is virtually no way that I've never met anyone, not once, who's rigorously explored vaccines in general. But let's just stay with this situation. This injection, and has then concluded it's a wise thing. If you've explored it, really, I have not met anyone who has then not only refusing to take it, but not encouraging others to explore for themselves. It's 100%.
Yeah.
And I have had people who said to me, "Well, I have explored it, and I'm taking it." Then I ask the most basic question about it, and they've got no idea what I'm talking about. So in truth, they haven't done it. They haven't explored it. Now, so that's so health freedom is not to say that don't do this or don't do that, but health freedom is to say do not blindly follow anyone, including me, anyone, and including Anthony Fauci, including whomever, whatever the experts' names are. I mean, um, anyone, Bill Gates, uh, you as a naturopathic doctor, anyone,
Yeah.
um, and that's really what that movement, our movement is all about. And I hate, I'm sorry to come across so um, you know, hard hitting, so to speak, on the vaccine issue or the massive lockdowns. I'm not going to back off of that. There is no excuse for what these companies and what Fauci and those guys are doing. None. I don't give them a pass, not even a little.
Yeah. Well, I don't, I don't think it's really like worthwhile here and now to go into the rabbit holes of what it is. I feel like there are people way smarter than I am, and not that you're not a smart guy, but I'm there are people who are talking about the reality of this new technology in greater depth than I'm interested in exploring today. But I just think it's so wild how there's this kind of collective belief that humanity is lost and needs some righteous leaders to show them the way by, getting an injection and posting a selfie of them getting an injection to show that, like, this is how you live, this is how you do it. And there's like this collective belief that humanity needs these fake quote unquote leaders, to show them the way. And it's so apparent in my profession. I've seen plenty of colleagues post their vaccine selfies, and I am questioning, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, what, one in particular, shared a story about getting sick with the virus, so allegedly, and telling her story, and oh, I've finally got the vaccine. It's such a weight off my shoulders. And I was like, all right, you got the virus allegedly. You've got your innate immunity then to that virus. So what is it that you're doing, shooting up with experimental technology? And her answer was to, like I was saying, to show others that they should trust this. And I was like, you're trusting experimental technology? Like, I don't even trust the FDA, and this is not FDA approved, you know?
Right, right, right. Yeah, there's something there. There's an amazing habit that we have when we do something to try to rally others to our perspective, our behaviors, in order to justify our behavior. It's a very weird trait, but we all do it to a certain degree. So we do something and we're not quite sure, and we want to. But if everyone does it, I must have been right to do it. It's a very weird tendency. Um, I have an acquaintance I've known forever, and he runs a company not too far from here, and a couple of his employees reached out to me because they received a letter from him that he's going to require this injection for employment, and they know me, and they know I know him, and it was a very and I and he his exact the letter was, I received it, it's the best way forward, and I know this gentleman, and this is what he does. He has no idea if it's the best way forward. He has no idea about the long term effect. He knows nothing, and he's now pushing this vaccine on his employees for what? Like, there's no rationale for that. None. The vaccine doesn't stop. It's not. Doesn't stop a contagion. They say it doesn't. So, what exactly would be the reason why you would require this injection for your employees? It doesn't matter if you get it. It doesn't stop so-called transmission. I don't think there is transmission, but that's a different story. So it's illogic. But I know this guy, and that's exactly what he's doing. He wants to feel better about what he did, and he is now going to rally other people to do it too, as if that's going to make him feel better about what he did. It won't. It won't. But he thinks it. He thinks it will. Um,
Yeah.
I have a quote in this book that I wrote that if you have to be convinced to trust, don't.
That's a good one.
That's the quote. Okay, so it's that simple. I mean, this propaganda campaign is the telltale sign that something is truly amiss, and
Yeah.
and not only are the politicians and whatever, we're talking about the everyday citizens who are getting the vaccine are doing the same thing. They've taken part in the propaganda campaign. And there's no justifiable reason for you to care if I get the vaccine, unless you truly think it's healthy for me, which
Yeah.
that's impossible. Like, if you look at what you're putting into your body, no one could think that. As I said before, it's literally impossible.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
I'll
yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
feel
impossible.
strongly about how people are eating, and like I want people to eat vegetables. And so like I feel passionate about like empowering people to eat vegetables, but just thinking about like if I were to try and empower people to put poison in their body, that wouldn't feel good. And there's this kind of I hear the like a buzz in the community, in the world, of people kind of having this question, this like innate intelligence kind of bubbling up. What am I doing? Does this make sense? But then they're being told that yes, it does. Don't listen to that questioning innate intelligence inside. Listen to the quote unquote authorities. Follow the quote unquote science, which someone just shared a great meme with me. And there's like a person following the scientist, but the scientist is following the politicians, this big political, yeah, this political cartoon here. So, anyways, people are really what's happening is that they, being the pharmaceutical industry, whatever, are capitalizing on this collective lack of trust in their innate wisdom, intelligence, body's ability to heal, and it's sad.
Well, yeah, it's like what we said before, though, that it's the least spiritual or sacred thing we can do. And and so what you're saying along with that statement I made is that we just don't know who we are. If in fact we are limited and lacking separate selves or human beings, if that's who we truly are, then you can make a case for masks and lockdowns, and um, the vaccine is so not. Let's say the vaccine actually provided immunity to something. Let's say it did that. Then I suppose you can make a case for that also, right? But so from the perspective of I am a separate self, my very nature is to be needy and lacking and vulnerable. And so it's logical from that perspective then for this to happen. And that's why I said that earlier. We it's the least. You are not a human being. You are consciousness is the word I use. You are God's infinite being, and there is no chance from that perspective that you would not treat all things, including this idea that you have a body, with love. And it is not treating a body with love to muzzle it, to isolate it, or to inject poison into it. And it's just that obvious. And I I cannot, frankly, we are part of somewhat part of the same spiritual community. I cannot believe what I see on social media of these so-called leaders in the community talking about the vaccine and doing all these things. It's more political than it is spiritual.
Yeah.
And it's sad, as you said. And I'll say one more thing. Anybody who said the fact that people have to say, "I got the vaccine and I'm doing great, I'm feeling good," the fact that that's even a concern, like what, what, like why would you put anything in your body that is going to make you potentially very ill? It's just so. I'm drinking hydrogenated water with infused with hydrogen. I have this thing at home. This is really good for you. It's not going to make me ill. And over here, I've got an orange and an apple. Apple's under this paper
Yeah,
towel.
it's like you take a bite and
Apple.
it's like, all right, I'm doing
I'm
it. I'm
not
doing good,
worried.
everyone.
Yes, I'm going to announce to the world I'm doing fine. I ate this orange and I'm good. And tonight, well, Liz and I will have I don't know what she's going to make, but
Real food,
what are we
presumably.
doing, man?
Yeah.
Real
Uh,
food, like no, real food, real food, and I just, it's just crazy, and it's so, it's eating. I have to be honest, and I'm not claiming to be uh, pure, or I overlook who I am plenty time, but I am when I'm going to say what I'm going to say. It is devastating me to see what I'm seeing. It is literally a buddy of mine who I had a long discussion with about this. He's such a great guy. He called me to tell me that he and his wife got to that. Like, thank you for doing what you did. I love you. We love you so much. And ultimately, though, this is just what we concluded. And I'm like, hey, I support you. I told him I support you. I love you no matter what you did. And I didn't. And it was a nice conversation. And he's such a dear friend that he even told me, like, he could have not told me. But I have to say, I was in my garage. Like, I was driving home from the office here, and I was in my garage when this conversation ended. And I walked into the house, and the first thing Liz said to me is, "What's wrong?" And I'm going to get sick right now because I'm going to get emotional because I'm so concerned for my buddy. I mean, that's how concerned I am. And he's 10 years older than me. He's a guy I kind of looked up to, and he is in such great shape. He takes care of himself. Like, yeah.
yeah.
So I was devastated. Not just for him. I'm for the world who's doing it. I know you and I know people in three principal communities. I went to God. We're all doing great. Yeah, okay. They don't know what the technology is if they're saying that. They don't know what they just did.
Yeah.
And by the way, if anyone's listening to this and you want to call either one of us to discuss it, call please. And if you've gotten the first shot and you don't have to get the second, it's not a law, like it's it's better not to get both than to you don't need both. You don't need anything, but it's better not to do it. So anyway.
Boy, yeah, my my heart hurts thinking about also all of the not only healthy people, but really brilliant. It's like it's evidence that our intelligence, I mean, I always feel like I've got to watch my words, and this came up in our one of our last calls, but like sometimes I feel like I'm gonna say something that doesn't sound right. But anyways, it's like people with their intelligence are still lost. It's like our intelligence doesn't provide us the answers because people are using their intelligence to look in a direction that is inauthentic, and yeah, it is just heartbreaking. And you brought up the fact that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I got the shot and I'm doing fine. I got a sore arm and I maybe had a headache for a couple hours, but it's like there's this disconnect from the reality of this physical body and how it works, and quote unquote side effects, like the side effects of eating cheeseburgers and french fries and drinking beer is like a heart attack, but that doesn't happen the night after you eat cheeseburgers, french fries, and beer. There's this accumulative toxicity, and we are not really playing the long game with our life. Yeah.
I think this will sound back, but because we're not because we're so focused on our life. In other words, life. And we've made that the priority
You mean like surviving?
as opposed well, surviving, staying alive. Even
Yeah,
the
alive.
idea that we are a body who's alive, staying alive, yes. And and as opposed to who we are. So in other words, anytime we place our focus on what's transient, what comes and goes, life. Okay. We will make stupid ass decisions. That's ignorance. Ignorance is placing your attention on that which is transient. Ignorance is simply the ignoring of your infinite and eternal being. So anytime we place our attention on what comes and goes or is transient, as opposed to placing our attention on who we are or what is permanent, we will make stupid decisions. We are chasing, seeking, resisting, trying to stay alive. We were never alive to begin with, or a better way to say it was we have never been born to begin with. And we are just spinning our wheels. So, and interestingly enough, across the board, those who have some true sense of their infinite eternal nature are the ones that take better care of the body, which is just hilarious. Without effort, without effort, it's not like hard. It's not a problem. Not drinking Coca-Cola isn't a problem. I mean, not 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 drinking Diet Coke or eating as you described before, that's not a problem. Not gouging on cake and cookies, that's not a problem. It's just not logic. It's not even a consideration. And across the board, this is. Remember, Sid Banks used to talk about like look at how people live their lives and stuff, and he meant things along this line. He didn't mean like having the perfect, you're so prim and proper and always say no. He just look at the holistic nature of of how that apparent is earth.
Hmm.
This help is unbelievable
Oh,
how that, so to speak, are those who are not in favor of people of lockdowns and masks and vaccines. It's stunning how those are the people who have explored these things and have come away with it saying, "You've got to be kidding!" Like, and it's fascinating how that's across the world. I said the other day, I don't know anyone who has refused vaccinations for themselves or their children who's not healthy,
yeah.
who's not healthy. I mean, it's stunning. No, those who are the anti-vaxxers are the ones who are not afraid, not walking around with their faces covered in crap, and hanging out with their friends, hugging people, kissing people, and doing fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it, it's just a stunning. It's stunning, quite frankly, how backward it is.
Yeah, it reminds me of someone shared some meme of like this picture of a group of people taking like a selfie together, hugging, and then another picture of this family, covered in bubble wrap walking through the
Right.
grocery store. And it's like conspiracy theorists, normal people, and it's like, oh my
I know.
gosh. Um, but
I know.
I do have a question because, you've been talking about seeking or gathering information from places other than maybe the most prominent talking heads. So that, as we know in our world today, is kind of a slippery slope because you can essentially find anything that you're looking for. So if you're looking for all of the, microchip, Bill Gates is satanic agenda kind of things, you will find it. If you're looking for, oh, this thing's actually really safe and there's nothing to worry about, clearly you'll find that. So how do you navigate the info world out there in a sane
Hmm.
way?
Tony, first of all, by the way, I just want to correct you on one thing, if I could, buddy. I don't think anybody could say this is safe. like I like that. You just can't. Like it's safe. There's no. You can't.
Yeah.
You
Well,
could say it. A doctor could say it, but you can't. There's no chance that
yeah.
it
So
just so doesn't.
what I hear you
But no,
saying
I know
is,
what you mean.
if you look at the actual data from the studies that are being undergone in terms of this vaccine thing, when you look at the actual data, it's actually not that promising, not at all, and the slightest bit. It's scary. But when you look at the conclusions drawn from the skewing of that data, there's a picture that's able to be painted that's like, look, this percentage of people get sick when they take the vaccine, and it's a little bit more percentage of people get sick when they don't take the vaccine. Don't you want to lower your chances of getting sick? Then it's a good idea to take the vaccine. But so anyways, like that kind of information obviously in our world today has this kind of veneer
Yeah.
and
Okay. Yeah.
facade.
So your question is an interesting one though, and I don't have to be honest. I don't really have. I'm gonna. I don't know that I'm gonna give a satisfactory answer to you or to anyone who's
I
watching
don't know if
this.
there is one. Yeah.
I can only speak from my own experience, and my own experience is that any in my 58 years, almost 59, there's this common thread has always interested me, and the common thread is those, let's say, change agents, people who have changed, so-called changed the course of history or invented something or discovered something or whatever, they have always presented a theory, a perspective, a concept that is contrary to the mainstream. It's always been the case, whether we're talking about Jesus or even before that, you know, Galileo or Socrates, uh, obviously, you know, freedom fighters like King or Malcolm X or Mandela or Bobby Kennedy, Einstein. It's always been Copernicus. I can go on. They've always presented, not to mention Bechamp as opposed to Pasteur, and we can go on and on. Germ theory as a terrain theory, which, by the way, I'm not 100%. It's closer by a gazillion, but we could talk about that too if you'd like. But they've always countered the narrative. Now, that's a weird word, but I don't know a better word, because I don't really think it's countering. They have just presented what they think is true, or what their exploration has wrought, and by its very nature, it's countered the lie, and eventually, the truth will always will win out, so to speak. And so I have my antenna up for people like that. It's always been the case. You know, Sid Banks was like that. You know, which is hilarious, because if you counter Sid Banks, and then you get squashed, which is funny in itself. If Sid, you know, you would think Sid Banks would appreciate that, but that's a whole different issue. Like, it doesn't
It
make any
sounds like
sense
you know
because
from
Sid
some experience.
countered. I have a lot of experience, but that community has come at me from, you know, the so-called leaders in that community. Not everyone. George has never done that. Bill Pettit has never done that. But the rest of them have. So anyway, and Jamie Smart's obviously a very close friend of mine. But so I look for those who are saying something different. Because when I see everyone following a narrative, that's the red flag that something's off. That's been a consistent theme in my life, and I've never seen it the other way. If everyone is saying the same thing, something's fucked up, and this is such an example of it. Like, you can't, now in our little bubble, we may not think that's the case, but then you get outside this health freedom bubble, and all of a sudden you can't believe what people are saying. So yeah, that's so I would look for those types of people, the people that are getting smeared, ridiculed, condemned. Those people are the ones to look at. Now, I'm not saying, like, there's some wacky shit out there too, but it's not hard to decipher it. I mean,
Yeah.
you can
It's
yeah.
not like it's not like if you're getting smeared, that means you're totally telling the truth. But if you're getting smeared, it's it's signaling to you, like, what's going on over here. So you approach that direction with curiosity.
Yes, and that's what happened here. Now that's what happened here. That's what happened with sports psychology that started my whole exploration into my career, and that's what happened here. It was very I didn't ask for it. It just seemed very clear to me. The first red flag to me was lockdowns. It just so didn't make sense to me, and I knew nothing at that point. It's a year ago. I knew nothing about any of this. Or I always into health and stuff, but eating right and exercising and stuff, but I didn't know anything about contagions and whatnot. But I knew enough to know that isolation, quarantining is the ultimate torture. I knew enough. I know that. So the minute we are being told to separate. That was the first red flag for me, that something's not right here. And that is what set me off, because if that's what everyone's preaching, and everyone's preaching it, like everyone went in, everyone took the bait. And I remember saying to my family, nope, something's not right here. And that's what happened. And I happen to have this dear friend named Ali Scott. Some people on this who are listening will know her, who lives in the UK. And she's studied non-duality with me, and but she's where we really became close friends was in our love of health and take in the body. And she is like you. She's really, she just has a great sense of it. And right off the bat, she sent me a video of this guy, I think in Australia, named Tom Barnett. I mean, he's a piece of work. And in this video, he says, it just was flat out said, you cannot catch a virus. And it's a kind of a comedic video. And he got like slammed for this video. But the minute I watched that, I'm like, wow, this is interesting to me, because my experience, I've always wondered, like, why did I not get sick? Why, when the people are sick? And I always wondered this. And that set me off. So Ali sent me this, and just my discussions with her were incredibly helpful, because again, she's very, very tuned into this. And then I watched Tom with this. Then I connected with Tom, and that's what led me to Tom Cowan. No, is it Tom Barnett? I think it's Tom. Yeah, and then Tom Cowan and Andrew Kaufman and Zach Bush, talking with you a couple times, and that is what really started it. And I am not one, to be honest, to pour over scientific papers. I'm not going to, it's not interesting to me to pour over scientific literature. But I will read, like, Tom's book, The Contagion Theory, The Contagion Myth, sorry. And then I've spoken to these people. I've asked the questions. I've reached out. I've asked hard questions. I've drilled them down. They've answered it and then sent me to this other thing to look more for myself. So yeah, I've been all over it. Like, I have been all over this. And anything could change, but where I sit now, first of all, this is not a virus. Now, a virus could result from the sickness from it, but I am, and I will say it at the risk of being taken off every social media site, because that's going to happen. I am convinced it's radiation poisoning. Radiation of 5G combined with all the other toxicity in our environment is toxic soup, so to speak. And we are all subject to it. So a vaccine and a mask and a lockdown isn't going to do anything. And the evidence is so obviously there that it hasn't done anything. And if anyone wants to say, well, in New Zealand, we locked down and look what happened, now we're back to normal. Well, there's plenty of places that lock down and are not back to normal. It would, obviously. So, and then we hear, well, we did it right, you didn't do it right. Well, you got to have science behind what you're saying. In other words, you just can't go by epidemiological observation and say, oh, it looks to me like we're doing better. It looks to me that we did this and then this happened. Or it looks to me like a family is giving it to each other, so they must have transferred it between spit from their mouth, which is hilarious in itself, to even think that the spit from your mouth, which is spit, which is RNA, DNA, some proteins, exosomes if you're sick. Like, it's all inert. Well, the toxins might not be inert, but you would have to swim in my spit to get sick. In other words, you know what I'm saying? The toxins in my spit may not be, but there's nothing in my spit that's going to make someone sick. Nothing. The virus is not in the spit.
Yeah.
An exosome, which is the discharge comes out of the cells, that's in the spit, but that's inert.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And for
so
obviously for people tuning into this and they're like, "What? I was
yeah,
told that I cover my mouth to prevent the droplets and the respiratory things. Um, this guy's nuts." Back to your initial point, like follow the curiosity. Follow the curiosity. Why do you like? I always like to ask the question to myself: why do I believe what I believe? Who told me what I believe, and how does it make sense? And does it make sense ultimately? Um, you brought up something really interesting earlier on, Garrett, about how like the outside of the box thinkers, so to speak, the Martin Luther Kings and the Copernicus and the Galileo, and like we only ever look at history from a retrospective view, and in the moment we aren't told the stories of ridicule. So we're kind of like, we hear about, oh yeah, like these guys were laughed at, but it's not really real because it's the history is looking at these guys as making scientific breakthroughs and whatnot. So it's just so interesting to put ourselves a couple hundred years ahead, a couple generations, hopefully not too far down the road, where we can look back and say, oh my gosh, like why did we resist the truth so fiercely? Why did we follow these liars so intently? Why were we so close-minded as a society? And obviously, when that point comes, there will be probably, unfortunately, generations removed, so that like there's just this, you know, we're not fully learning what history has to offer. You study history to not repeat it, but we're not. But here we are repeating history.
yeah.
Ridiculing the scientists and thinking that
The real,
science.
the real scientists, the real scientists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Scientists who, scientists don't rest on their conclusions for their life. Scientists continue to question and to push the envelope because they should be always trying to disprove themselves. That's how science survives and evolves. But yeah.
The if fear is arising and we make the fatal mistake of assuming that fear arises in a body, when of course no one has ever found fear in a body. It sounds crazy, but I guess a lot of things I've said today sound that way. Then if we make the mistake of owning fear, personalizing fear, then we will repeat history. If it is understood that fear arises within the whole, within consciousness, it is not personal, then there would be no reason to try to fix fear. So we are given all the strategies, all the methods, all the principles or whatever that can help us fix these feelings or sensations. We're given all the strategies and the principles and the whatever to fix sickness. We're all of this. to rid ourselves of this fear or this feeling, rid ourselves of sickness. It's never happened. Sickness has never left the body. Fear has never left the body. It cannot happen. We don't know who we are. We don't understand that these objects, these transient objects, and a sensation or a feeling is an object, it's known. Objects are known. Just like a sickness is an object, it's known. Objects rise and fall within the whole, within consciousness, within you. Once that is understood, fear will come, it will be welcomed by the whole, and it will be absorbed back from where it started. Same with sickness. Sickness is not bad. A virus is a blessing. A virus is serving. We have got the whole shooting match in reverse. I have another quote in this book that says, I don't have it in front of me, it's a little longer than the other one, so I don't remember it exactly, but it says something along the lines of, if you take everything the opposite of the way it appears and live your life that everything is the opposite, you will live a happy life. I say something like that in this book. It's
Opposite day. I remember
opposite day.
that from elementary school.
Yeah, it's opposite day. And that is because if we take the perspective to be if we take our perspective to be from the perspective of a human being, we will make the mistake of assuming, of believing that everything is happening outside of me. This is where inside out came from. It's such a abortion. It's a mistake. Okay. And of course, Sid never was inside out. That was a later generation of his teaching. So if you take this, because that shows the fault of the three principles. I'm sorry to devolve into that, but that's the evidence that the three principle understanding, as it's currently taught, is taught from the perspective of a body. Because any assumption that this is happening outside of me is a lie. That's the lie. So if I mistake this perspective from a body, then I am a separate body. I am seeing separation, everything from a distance from me. There's no evidence of that. If we understand who we are, I am the whole, I am consciousness, all of this, you might say, is then appearing within you, made of you, known by you. So there would be nothing to run from. Where am I going to go? I can't go anywhere. Consciousness can't move, can't hide, can't shelter. So we have taken our perspective backward. We've got it backward. And provided I am a separate self, we will continually flounder, as you're saying. We will repeat the same mistakes over and over again. That is because our starting point is backward.
Well, what you're saying right now, Garrett, to me, I'm having this awareness that it really probably is the next iteration of the Copernicus and the universe. This myth of Earth being the center of the universe kind of thing. And I'm not an expert on the history of that that stuff, but like we are mistaken how we are in the world, like where we are or where we aren't, and who we are and who we're not. It's all we have it all mistaken, and we're fed this, and society is designed to program within us this lie, this
Yes, this
mistake.
lie. Yes, you're right.
And
Exactly right.
like it's all orchestrated so that we get deeper and deeper entrenched into the lie, and everything is kind of broken and not working. And So I love the quote about backwards. You know, if we just like spin it on its head and reverse engineer how to get out of it, so to speak, it's really quite simple.
We play this game, so to speak, exercise, whatever games, where literally we ask the players to flip their perspective. As crazy as it may seem, go through this play or this drill. This is during practice. Go through this play or this drill from the perspective of I am the whole, and this field, this world, everything is appearing within me, not outside of me or at a distance. This is all within me, known by me, made of me. Okay, so we actually ask players. I ask players and some of the people that work for me to go through drills, practices, lay in their bed at night, as I do, ultimate meditation, and flip this perspective. Now, we're actually not flipping it. We are, but we're going back to the true perspective. I always say this, like, does your dog have any idea that he or she is a dog that is seeing from the confined body of a dog? How would a dog know such a thing? It wouldn't. You have to be taught that, as you were saying. We're taught that. So just as metaphorically speaking, a gazillion years ago, we were at this fork in the road. I am the whole. I am God's infinite being. I am consciousness. I am a person. I am a human being. I am a separate self. We went this way. We should have gone this way. And we are still going, as you just said, in that faulty direction. These kinds of conversations are saying, hang on, let's turn this ship around. Let's go back to that juncture where we took the wrong turn. Now, I'm not saying people should believe us. I'm just asking people, look at your experience. How do you know that you are experiencing this video from the perspective of a body? Where's your evidence of that? You don't have any evidence of that. In order to have evidence of that, you would have to be able to experience yourself watching this video. In other words, I can see a person next to me, so to speak, watching a video, but I can't see me watching a video. I can
Yeah.
see a hand or something, but I have no evidence that I am seeing you right now from the perspective of a body. None. 0%. Well, if I look in a mirror, Garrett, no, I'm looking in a mirror. Show me the evidence, just like show me the evidence that viruses are contagious, because you can't. Show me the evidence that this conversation is happening between two people. Sorry. Now, we can play the game as if it is, fine, but there is no evidence of this. And I am telling you that, go back to Sid Banks, this is what he was trying to say. The outside cannot help you. The outside cannot hurt you, because there is no outside. He was saying that everything is happening within you, because you are God. You are the whole, and all things are made of you. Now, exactly what are we going to run from? From that knowing, from the perspective of consciousness or God. Where are we going? Now, this is not to say that I live from that perspective and set the greatest example of that perspective always. I do not. But that's the beauty. Like, don't ask me to practice what I preach, because it's impossible. Okay? Because the seeing and the knowing is one thing. The conditioning, however, will keep rearing its ugly head. That is an endless journey of of breaking down that conditioning, so to speak. And that's fine. That's fine. You know, people say to me, "Oh, I messed up." I'm like, "No, it's fine. It's fine." That's what my buddy who called me about the vaccine. I love you. It's fine. Like, I know we can come on heavy and strong, and I can do that, but that doesn't mean it's fine. Like, we all forget that we're Superman, and we take ourselves to be Clark Kent. It's just what we do, and that's not going to change. The illusion of separation will always remain, and we will get caught up in it, even after the belief in separation has been obliterated.
Yeah.
Now, let's go. God, sorry. I wanted to say one thing about um, what was it? About falling for the lie, but we can pick up on that in a second.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say was, just the mental exercise, you might say, of considering an alternative reality or an alternative way of relating to life and self. Just kind of having that open mindedness to get curious, even if what you're telling me, I'm not suggesting that it is, but even if it were a big fat lie, even if you're telling, telling me to, you know, just live ridiculously, just the act of allowing myself to consider something else, I feel is a wonderful exercise or way of being in the world, to just like, oh, that guy is opening his mouth and telling me something. Maybe it's legit. Maybe he's full of shit, you know? And just rather than back to kind of where we were starting, just swallowing it all and going with it and not thinking for ourselves.
The and that is, it's very important that we continually remind those that we speak to or write to or whatever to not believe what we say. Like, don't believe what we say. And I always say, like, if something doesn't add up, stop me at that point, because if we go past that point, then we've just wasted our time, or you're just being indoctrinated with words. You just, because this journey is about, as I said, breaking down our conditioned beliefs on the way to breaking down the primary belief: I am a separate self, I am the body. Now, we have to be taught that. Like I said, you know, I don't know any baby who is born saying, I'm a separate self, I'm a body. You have to be taught that the perspective that you see the world, so to speak, is from a body. You have to be taught, I am a boy, I am a girl, my name is this, my religion is this, my nationality is this, my race is this, my house is this house, my desk at school is this desk, my I'm good at this, I'm bad at this. I mean, these are this is programming. And this journey is about shedding that. And what a blessing for me to shed the viruses are contagious.